David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another ink review and a giveaway of this very unique offering that I think you will really like. What I have for you today is something called the 3 Oysters Doming the Sea of Notions ink kit. Now, there's a lot going on in that name, so let me break it down. This ink kit is a partnership between the South Korean ink company 3 Oysters and a South Korean artist and illustrator by the name of Doming. There is a great deal of things to go over with this product, but the essence of this kit is to provide you with the tools to create your own custom blue ink. Thanks go out to 3 Oysters for providing this set for review, and to the retail Shigur Inks for providing one of these sets for giveaway. Shigur Inks is based out of New Jersey. The gentleman behind the company is Alex Epifano. The company is relatively new, only a year or so old. Alex became interested in fountain pens and stationery as most of us have, and found it a challenge when trying to purchase inks from the Asian markets. Dealing with shipment forwarders or purchasing services and custom forms and other things like that made these transactions a lot less convenient. So, with the idea that other enthusiasts might be interested in these items he struggled to get, he formed a company and became a retailer for these hard-to-get brands. And in regard to the company name, Alex was taken with the imagery behind the Japanese word shigur, I believe that's how you pronounce it, which means rain shower in late autumn or winter. It's Alex's favorite time of the year, and coupled with his favorite weather, he felt it made for a rather serene and refreshing image. Okay, in order to take a closer look at this intriguing set, please join me over here at camera 2. Here is the box the ink set arrives in. These sets were a limited edition, and there are very limited quantities of these available. I believe that 100 were made available to the US market, and the vast majority of those have already been sold, so there are not that many left. I typically discuss price near the end of a review, but I wanted to get to this up top. On the Shigur Ink site, this set retails for $45, which I feel is reasonable for the unique item you receive. If this interests you, I would encourage picking one up while you can, because once they are gone, they are gone. If you purchase one, then you happen to win this. Having 2 wouldn't be the worst problem. These would make for a fantastic gift. That being said, let's take a look at what you actually receive here. On top, it says the Sea of Notions, and I believe that's one of Doming's works. And then on the side here, you have this ribbon. And once you open up the ribbon here, you are presented with something very cool. One of the coolest boxes I have seen. And here it is. You open this up and you have this very cool pop-up. Let's get the ribbon out of the way. And I'll do this a couple of different times. I know that you're not seeing everything on screen, but you can kind of see different portions of it. Up top, we have the stars and the night sky. Then there is the mermaid and the flying fish. This does say Sea of Notions, I believe. And then we have the ocean down below with some waves. It's very, very cool. I'm not sure why the mermaid is crying. That's probably explained in the story this is based on, but I do care for the artwork. And I like the action of the pop-up and how it kind of makes it look like the flying fish are flying away. Now, I've seen flying fish before when I was out on a fishing boat. They do not have feathered wings like this. Not that I'm critiquing the realism of this fantasy artwork. I believe this Korean text, like I said, also says the Sea of Notions. And then underneath the flap is the ink. Now, there are a couple of things included in this, other things that are included in this ink kit. I've had this kit for a while, probably about a year, and for the life of me, I could not find the other items. There are a couple of note cards of additional art, as well as a recipe card, the purpose of which I will discuss here in a moment. This is the ink. Let's go ahead and take this out. We'll take the other item out as well, and just set this aside. This is the ink. It is a 38 milliliter bottle. there is a corner that is cut out so you could kind of lean it on its side like this when you are getting the ink out. Now, this is a standard bottle for 3 oysters, and while the bottle does lean, I find it's a bit wobbly. So I would be nervous about inking up a pen with it teetering like that. The bottle has some nice artwork to it. It has basically a different interpretation or of the same imagery contained in the pop-up. And then we have this secondary bottle right over here, which is called the Mermaid Tears. And it includes a glass eyedropper, a nice glass eyedropper here. And as you will see here in a second, this blue ink is rather saturated. And in order to create a custom color, then what you do is you put a bit of blue into a separate container. And you know what? I'll show you what I did in order to do that. What I did is I used these sample vials and then added the Mermaid Tears until you have a shade of blue that you're looking for. I did a bit of an experiment here. I put 1 ounce of ink into each of these sample vials. Now, I know I'm holding these on the side, so you really can't see what is in here. But what I did was I added 1 ounce of ink, of the main ink, and that was an ounce of, not a fluid ounce, but an ounce of weight. And then I progressively added a larger amount of the Mermaid Tears. On a side note, if you're someone who finds yourself with a large amount of sample vials, I'll recommend picking up something like this. It is a test tube holder, and it works great to store sample vials. This one here is typically full, but I emptied it out for the sake of this video. I know at this angle it's tough to tell, but there are varying amounts of ink in each of these as I progressively added more and more of the Mermaid Tears, all the way from no tears all the way up to 100 tears, which were in this bottle here. Okay, that is an awful lot of info and background, and we haven't even taken a look at the ink itself. So here were the results of my experiment. This top line here is the pure ink with nothing added to it, and then I progressively added more and more Mermaid Tears, and this number here represents the amount of tears that I added. I started off only adding a few, and then I started jumping it up to where we got up to 40, 50, 75, and then finally 100. You can see here with the normal ink, with the standard ink, there is a bit of sheen to it and a bit of shading as well. But then that kind of slowly goes away as the color progressively gets lighter and lighter. In regard to some color swatches, this is what the 100% looks like. And then this one had 50 tears in it, and then this one had 100 tears in it. So you could see that you could take it from being rather saturated to rather light. And in regard to some other color comparisons, in regard to the fully saturated ink, here it is with Omos Blue. This is another heavily blue saturated ink, the Farney's American Blue. Here it is with Colorverse Goulet Passion and the Visconti Blue. This is Ackerman Shocking Blue. And then finally something a little bit lighter, but this is the Fountain Pen Revolution Royal Flush Blue. So let's take a closer look at the ink. This is the 3 Oysters and Doming the Sea of Notions. I write this top portion with a 2.4 millimeter Pilot Parallel. This is a really nice calligraphy pen that comes in varying sizes. One thing that I will notice is I noticed that on this Rhodia 80 gram paper that the ink, when it was going over the lines, it's like it didn't quite absorb into the lines. And so you could see, especially like in this D, where it didn't necessarily absorb into the paper as much where the actual line is. This is Rhodia 80 gram paper, like I mentioned. I'd say the ghosting and bleed is rather low. This was rather highly saturated and it pretty much didn't seep through the paper at all. This was the fully saturated ink, and then right next to it, this is the 100 tears. I'd say the shade is low-ish, and the sheen was medium-high. In regard to the writing samples, since this ink is related to a story, then I thought I would share quick stories about each of the pens I'm using. I've often said that a fountain pen is nice, but a fountain pen with a story is that much more special. To begin with, we have a little pen here from Visconti, and this one is called a Viscontina. And this is a fine 14 karat gold nib. Or is it 18 karat? Nope, it's 14 karat gold. Then next up, we have a pen from the Carolina Pen Company, and this one here is called the Padre Sunset. So this is the Carolina Pen Company. And this was the Padre Sunset. And this one is a medium nib. And finally, we have a pen which was a collaboration between Stylograph and the Heinz Pen Company and Papier Plume, which is called the Blues, which has this really nice flexible nib on here. So all this is Papier Plume, the Blues. And we'll just say that this is a flex nib, FL for flex. Okay, so in regard to the stories for each of these, I said, always read the description closely when purchasing a pen. You might end up with something other than expected. What had happened was I had seen an online auction for this pen. It was a Visconti model I wasn't familiar with and I hadn't seen, and I thought it looked pretty cool. But the thing is, I thought it was a standard size pen. This is a very small pen. Now, the description was not deceiving, and the pictures were not deceiving. It said the exact size and the exact weight and the dimensions of the pen. I just didn't pay attention to it. And when I received the pen, I was very surprised. It actually came in a box with a necktie in it. So a necktie and this very, very small pen. I do enjoy it, but it was a cautionary tale to me that I needed to make sure that I thoroughly read the descriptions of things before I purchased them. Okay, on to the next story. I said, I learned a great deal about the creation of custom resins as well as custom pen turning while visiting Jonathan Brooks. If you haven't seen it, I produced a video a few months back where I went to Jonathan Brooks, the man behind the Carolina Pen Company, went to his studio. We made a couple of pens based on some pictures and created the resin and then created the pens. And when I say that means Jonathan did it and I helped out a very, very small amount. But it was an amazing experience. If you haven't seen that video, it was a lot of fun to put together and I thought it was rather educational. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, I would highly recommend it. And then finally, in regard to the blues, I said I enjoy working with companies to review pens being introduced to the market. I had a chance to do that recently with the Esterbrook JR, and the Blues was another one of those pens. I think it's just kind of fun to work with retailers and work with distributors and work with creators, and especially when it's a good product like this, then I think it's fun to bring it to the public and fun to give a little extra exposure to that. Plus, it's fun to check things out a little bit early. That's just a benefit of having this channel. In regard to flow, I find this to be a medium flow. For drying time, I found that both with a fine and a medium nib, between 15 and 30 seconds, this ink was dry. I said here that the Sea of Notions ink set offers a customizable ink in a unique package that you will want to have as a keepsake. We'll do a little bit of a water test here. And as that sits here, let's take a look at some chromatography. I always think doing this chromatography is a lot of fun, that it gives me a chance to kind of see how the ink breaks out. And in this particular case, it's not a straight blue, that there was a lot more red and kind of pink in here as well than I had anticipated. So sometimes inks surprise you a little bit, and this was one of those cases. And this is what the chromatography looked like. Plus, I think those just look kind of cool. Okay, let's take a look at this here. And for the most part, that did not hold up to being waterproof. And actually, the paper was giving away here as well. So, but then they don't necessarily say that this is a waterproof ink, though you would think that maybe mermaid tears should be waterproof. Okay. Thanks again go out to 3 Oysters for providing one of these sets for review, and to Shigur Inks for providing one set for giveaway. In regard to the contest, Shigur Inks will be giving one of these ink kits away to a lucky viewer. The contest is open worldwide. In order to enter, you need to be subscribed to this channel. And besides that, this is what I'd like you to do. Shigur Inks has a large number of inks from companies you probably have not heard of or have heard very little about. There is a link to their site in the notes below. You need to visit their site and then leave a comment in this video letting me know what ink they have available, which is either something new to you or something that you find intriguing. 72 hours after the posting of this video, I will select a comment at random and reply to it, letting the winner know what they need to do in order to claim their prize. And a very special prize it is that I think you'll very much enjoy. I have enjoyed playing around with this set as well, and I can't get enough of this box. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.